I was sitting at the kitchen table, enjoying a bowl of muesli, when I was startled by a sudden knock on my kitchen door. Wondering who could be knocking at 8 in the morning on a Sunday, I walked across the tiled floor and opened the door. A man in his 40s stood on my porch, wearing a cheap, wrinkled suit. Behind him stood 3 uniformed police officers. This was definitely not a typical Sunday morning routine. "Mr. Young?" asked the man in the suit, flashing a badge. "Do you mind if we come in and ask you a few questions?" "I'm afraid I can only speak to one person at a time, Detective. What was your name again?" "Cook. Detective Richard Cook." "I'll be the one asking questions, Mr. Young. These officers would like to take a look around your home, if you don't mind," the detective added. "Do you have a warrant?" "I've seen enough police shows to know that you need a warrant to barge into my house and take a look around, as you put it," I stated. "No, sir. We don't have a warrant. I'm requesting your permission for these officers to search your home." "You have the right to deny my request." "In that case, I'll have to obtain a warrant," the detective agreed. I honestly couldn't think of anything I might need to hide, but then again, I didn't know what they were looking for. Illegal movies on my laptop. Doesn't ring a bell. A couple of bodies in the freezer. Probably unlikely. Oh, right, some illegally copied DVDs. "You're not from Interpol, are you?" I asked quickly. "No, Mr. Young. Believe me, we're not interested in pirated films." "People are always worried about that," the detective admitted, slowly shaking his head. "Could you tell me what this is about, then?" I asked politely. "It's quite unusual for this neighborhood. Why do you want to search my home?" "Sir, there's been a murder, and I'm investigating it. These officers are assisting me. Is there any reason why you want to deny my request?" Detective Cook asked. "Well, yeah. Because I can. Because I don't want a bunch of strangers wandering around my house. Because the floors are clean, and I want them to stay that way, otherwise my wife will give me hell when she wakes up," I replied. "Enough reasons. How about I drag your ass down to the station and question you for 5 or 6 hours while my colleagues get a warrant and comb through your nice, clean house with a damn fine-tooth comb," growled Cook. "Gentlemen, you may come in and take a look around while I entertain Detective Cook," I said, addressing the 3 uniformed officers. I wasn't sure why the cops were so eager to search my house, but I was fairly confident they wouldn't find anything terrible, except, perhaps, for those damn tags the kids tore off their mattresses and snuck past the checkout 15 years ago. If the tension escalated, Cook might end up heading to the University of Pennsylvania and arresting both of my sons. Back in the day, I practically bit my tongue off trying to warn them that removing those cursed tags was illegal. I motioned to a chair for Cook as the 3 uniformed men stepped into the kitchen. I noticed they slowed down and stopped by the island in the center of the room. Almost simultaneously, they turned to look in my direction. One at a time. I grumbled as that holy trinity dove into my box of fresh donuts. I had bought a dozen jelly donuts just minutes before their arrival, and their aroma clearly triggered some deep professional instinct. At that moment, my wife June stepped carefully into the kitchen, clutching the collar of her robe tightly at her neck. "Steve, what's going on? Why are police officers walking through our house and eating donuts? Is something wrong?" she asked, concerned. "June, this is Detective Cook. I hope he'll enlighten us about the situation by asking his questions." I gave them permission to take a look around, that's the euphemism Cook used for it. "Detective, this is my wife, June. Maybe you can tell us why you're here. Are you investigating a murder? Mr. Robert Morgan was shot last night, around midnight. I assume you both knew him." "Well, yes. He was June's boss. You shouldn't be short on suspects, Cook. That bastard made cuckolds faster than rabbits reproduce. You should be looking for a jealous husband, or maybe even a whole platoon of them," I smirked, feeling no sadness whatsoever about the death of my wife's former employer. No one else even cracked a smile. June's face turned whiter than I'd ever seen it, and tears welled up in her eyes. Cook simply gave a slight nod while studying my expression. Aside from June's quiet sobs, the room was dead silent. "Mrs. Young, how long have you been having an affair with your employer, Robert Morgan?" the detective asked. "I wasn't really having an affair with him, not seriously," June sobbed. "It was more of a casual thing. I didn't love him or anything like that. We first got involved maybe about 6 months ago. I would never shoot anyone, especially not Bob. I never assumed that, Mrs. Young. I'm simply trying to gather all the facts," Cook stated dryly. "How did your husband react to your involvement with Mr. Morgan? Was he jealous? Angry? Upset when he found out?" "Steve had no idea I was cheating on him until this moment, Mr. Cook. That topic was, of course, never discussed between us." "I'm sure Steve would be upset, but not enough to kill Bob," June replied, though with less conviction than I would have liked from a wife. "Really?" the detective grumbled. "Mr. Young, how would you answer the same questions?" "They started having sex on August 9th of this year," I replied calmly. "It was after a dinner party at the Morgans. I was called away early due to a work emergency. He offered to drive June home and took her in the back seat of his SUV. I'm not upset because June and I have an unspoken agreement. Simply put, we can sleep with whomever we want, and we do. June decided to sleep with Morgan. That was strictly between the two of them." June's jaw dropped almost to the floor at my revelation. It took her a few seconds to process all the information I had just unloaded on the detective. I could see the gears in her head turning very slowly. "Why have I never heard of this so-called agreement?" June asked indignantly. "Because that's what the word unspoken means, dear," I replied quickly. "If we had discussed it, I would have said we had a verbal agreement. If we had signed and notarized it, then it would be a written agreement. What we had was unspoken." "Well, it would have been nice if I'd known about it," June said. "I worked really hard to make sure you never found out about Bob. I think from now on all our agreements should be verbal, or even documented. This stumbling around in the dark is getting on my nerves." "That answer doesn't seem entirely satisfactory to me," Cook admitted, reaching into his shirt pocket and pulling out a small recorder. "You both should know that I'm recording everything you say. Mrs. Young, have you been involved with any other gentleman, or was Mr. Morgan your only lover?" "Of course he was the only one," June protested, perhaps a bit too emphatically. "I'm a married woman. How can you even ask me such questions? To your knowledge, has your husband made use of this unspoken agreement, or has he remained completely faithful to you?" Cook asked. "Steve would never break our marriage vows, detective," June replied, somewhat indignantly. "He's as loyal as an old dog. You can put that on the record. Mr. Young, I'll ask you the same questions again. Do you agree with your wife's answers?" June has been sleeping with her colleague, Bill Anderson, since September 15th. Aside from her affairs with the two previously mentioned bastards, she's as faithful to me as that damn geyser proudly bearing the same name in one of our national parks, I replied emotionlessly. June let out a barely audible sigh. "She just loves the way he touches her." "You seem remarkably well informed as a husband, and even more remarkable is your complete lack of emotion," the detective noted. "Most men would be furious and might even consider murder if they found out their wife was entertaining two lovers. Why are you so calm about all this, Mr. Young?" "As I already mentioned, we have an unspoken agreement. June's been doing this practically in the open, but I've been more discreet, if you know what I mean," I said with a shy grin. It looked like June was about to have a stroke. Her eyes had stopped shedding tears and were now practically bulging out of their sockets. Her face was more crimson than pale, and with her left hand, she crushed a jelly donut. Jelly oozed through her fingers and dripped all over her robe, though she didn't seem to notice. "In other words, you're saying you had a mistress as well, the astonished detective demanded. And it seems your wife didn't know about it. Who was your affair with, and when did it begin, Mr. Young? You're very perceptive. No wonder you made detective before even turning 50, I replied sarcastically. I first made love to Janet Morgan on August 11th, 2 days after her husband had sex with June in the back seat of his car. Since then, we've managed to do it practically every weekday, I recalled fondly. That minx really loves sex. In shock, June raised her hand to her temple. The movement caused the jelly in her hand to smear onto her forehead. And she didn't even seem to notice, while Cook was too polite to point it out, especially since he was clearly struggling to form a coherent sentence. Good Lord! You're sleeping with the widow of the murder victim, he exclaimed. You were with Janet Morgan every weekday. I briefly questioned her last night, and she didn't mention your name once. Is there any chance you're mistaken, or just trying to make a joke? Do you want to hear her mention my name, Cook? Hide in her bedroom closet the next time I'm on top of her, and you'll hear her moaning it loud and clear. Of course I'm not mistaken. I remember the names of every woman I sleep with, damn it. I declared firmly. You said you sleep with women, plural, Mr. Young. Do you have more than one mistress? Now that you ask, I have to admit I've been doing the horizontal mambo with Lisa Anderson since mid-September. We danced several times every weekend, sometimes even during the week. That woman goes at it like a damn vacuum cleaner from a late-night infomercial on the couch. I even demonstrated it. Jelly was now freely dripping down June's face as she collapsed into a chair in a near comatose state. Cook was swallowing some kind of small pill. It looked like nitroglycerin, the kind my Uncle Phil used to take from time to time for his heart. After taking a moment to pull himself together, Cook lunged forward. Mr. Young, you must understand, you're having affairs with the wives of 2 men who are sleeping with your wife. May I assume this is not a coincidence? I'll even admit I've seen Mrs. Anderson, and she's very attractive. I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't assume, Cook, but I slept with both of those women right after their husbands slept with June. Revenge is sleeping with your wife's lovers' wives. And let me tell you, revenge is sweet, but vengeful sex is even sweeter. I was lucky enough to experience that incredible high, I replied with obvious satisfaction. You're telling me you killed Robert Morgan to get revenge for his affair with your wife? Hell, you were slept his wife every damn weekday. Wasn't that enough for you? Cook demanded. The answer to both your questions is a definite no. In time, you'll understand what my ultimate revenge was, I promised. What the hell questions did you just answer no to? Asked the confused detective, fumbling with his recorder to replay his earlier questions. So, are you saying you didn't kill Robert Morgan? Or are you saying he wasn't killed out of revenge? Cook asked after listening to his own questions. I could answer yes to both of those, I replied. Damn it. Cook growled. I've got to remember to ask only one question at a time. At that very moment, one of the uniformed officers came into the kitchen holding a large handgun and waved it in front of the detective's disbelieving eyes. I found this in the gun cabinet in the basement, the officer beamed. Do you want to tag it as evidence and log it? Great idea. Cook exclaimed. Be sure to get it fingerprinted at the lab. The owner of those prints is either a cold-blooded killer or the dumbest son of a bitch on the planet. The officer blushed slightly as he walked out the door, holding my .44 Magnum in one hand and my damn donuts in the other. She's starting to drip pretty badly, the detective smirked, watching as strawberry filling dripped from the tip of June's nose onto the kitchen table near the donut box. No pun intended. Morgan was shot with a .44 Magnum. Do you own such a weapon, Mr. Young? One night I saw Bill Anderson with a .44 Magnum while his wife was giving me a little something. It made me think. As you well know, jealous husbands can be bastards, and killers. I realized I needed a gun just as good as Bill's, in case he ever came at me in a rage. Not every man is as understanding as I am. So I went out and bought the same one. We've got motive and a weapon, Cook smiled. Now all we need is opportunity. I assume you spent a quiet evening at home with your wife. Actually, I spent most of the evening with Lisa Anderson, and, to be precise, in her marital bed. I left at exactly 11:12 and came straight home. June was asleep when I got here. I'm not sure Lisa will remember the time since she was pretty drunk when I left, I added. Well, how convenient. You remember the exact time you left, but Mrs. Anderson was too out of it to recall anything, and your wife was asleep when you returned. I almost hesitate to ask, but how exactly do you remember the precise time you left the Anderson residence? Cook inquired. Her husband left a message on the answering machine while I was busy with his wife. He said he was coming home from the airport. It was 10:12. I knew the fastest he could possibly get home was in an hour. So I made sure to leave before 11:12. I passed his car driving into their neighborhood as I was heading home, I said. Even if you left at 11:12, as you claim, you still had enough time to get to Morgan's house and shoot him when he opened the door. I think we have enough evidence to arrest you for murder, Mr. Young, declared the very satisfied detective. He was already reaching for his handcuffs when his cell phone rang. Cook motioned for one of his damn boys to keep an eye on me while he stepped outside to take the call privately. He was gone for almost 10 minutes. The look on his face when he came back told me everything. Son of a bitch. Detective Burns just got a full confession out of Bill Anderson. He claims he got home from the airport and found his wife dead drunk and completely covered in another man's fluids. He lost it when he saw a wallet on the floor next to his passed-out wife. It was Robert Morgan's wallet, so he grabbed his gun, went over to Morgan's place, and blew a hole in him big enough to shove a cat through. At first, he tried to deny it, but he cracked under Burns' questioning. Do you have any idea how Robert Morgan's wallet ended up on the bedroom floor at the Andersons? Cook asked. Not a clue, Cook, I replied quietly. He often left it on the nightstand next to his bed. I noticed it a few times when I was with his wife. Why he, or anyone else, left it at the Andersons is a total mystery to me. Looks like one of your wife's lovers is going to prison for a very long time for killing her other lover. And all the while, you were sleeping with both of their wives more often than they were with yours, even combined. And now your wife is sitting here in some kind of trance, her head buried in a box of damn jelly donuts. Even sweeter, was my only reply. Thank you for being with us. And if you're one of those who watches silently, just leave a like, it helps new stories come to light.